Hello everyone. In this video lecture, I will cover the design issues of distributed system. If you are going to design the distributed system, then what kind of issues that might occur during the design of that system. This is the basic part of this topic is a part of a basic distributed system concept. In this again I will cover the types of transparency and types of kernels are available and the comparison between the kernels. So let us start with the design issues in designing a distributed system. Here is one image is given. This image is only and only to remember this all the types of issues easily. It is not for the examination purpose or it is not for the uh, writing purpose, but it is just to remember this all the topic subtopics of issues easily. You have to remember transparency keyword and F. First issue is transparency, then flexibility, then reliability, performance, scalability, security, and fault tolerance. These 7 are the issues to design a distributed system. And I have given this all the word from the keyword, from the letters of the transparency keyword. Here I have already mentioned this all the things. Let me explain about all these issues first. First of all, what is transparency? Why transparency is an issue to design a distributed system? Transparency, that means you have to hide from fact that processes and resources are physically distributed across the network. You are using more than one computers, you are using more than one resources, you are using more than one processes to delivering particular task that you have to hide. And this is the fact that you are using more than one computers in distributed system. You have to hide such a things. So hiding of this thing is kind of issue and it is called as a transparency issue. Many transparency issues are available. Based on that, it is divided into types of transparency topic. This type of transparency having this many transparency types that you can remember by using the keyword or by using the letters of the keyword transparency. Total 7 type of transparencies are available. So let me explain first the types of transparency. First issue is a transparency, and types of transparencies are, that means hiding something, that you are using multiple resources. First is access transparency. Access transparency, that means hide the difference in data representation, how resource is accessed. Means that whether user can not be able to identify that whether user is accessing a local resource or remote resource, that you have to hide whether user is accessing local resource or remote resource. This is called the access transparency. Second is location transparency. Hide where a resource is physically located. You have to hide where this particular file or resource is available, on which machine it is available, that you have to hide. This thing you can provide by using the similar naming rules of all the resources on all the distributed machines. You have to define some naming rule to give that name. You have to give to all the resources which is available in a network. Migration transparency, that means hide the movement of the resource to another location. in distributed system, when your computer have the many processes and another computer have very less processes, and the second computer is free now, so you can transfer the process from one computer to another computer to generate your output very quickly. This is called as a load balancing technique of a distributed system. If one computer is loaded and another computer is not loaded, you can shift load from one computer to another computer. Whenever you are moving your process from one computer to another computer, it is called the process migration mechanism. It is one chapter in our syllabus. So whenever you are moving your process from one computer to another computer, it should be hide from the user. User cannot get the idea whether your process is going to migrate from one machine to another machine. That you have to hide. Second is relocation mechanism, relocation transparency. Relocation transparency means hide the movement of the resource to another location while it is in use. See the difference between this migration transparency and relocation based transparency. Relocation transparency, it's again the movement of resource from one computer to another computer. But the difference is between this, in relocation, transfer the resource from one machine to another machine while it is in used. Well, that means the user is using that particular resource. So you have to hide this migration when user is using that resource and you are migrating that resource from one computer to another computer. You have to hide this thing. Replication transparency means hide the fact that multiple copies of the resources exist without user's knowledge. Whenever you are uploading your photos on a Google Photos, whenever you are uploading the data in a Google Drive, are you able to identify how many number of copies are maintained by the Google? How many number of disk is available with the Google, and how many disk having the resource that you have uploaded on the Google? That we cannot identify. So this is again a replication transparency. We cannot identify how many number of copies are available of our resource in a overall distributed system. Concurrency transparency means hide the fact that resource may be shared by several users. Here in distributed system, you have to give the access of concurrent execution. You multiple users can access the similar resource at the same time. It is called the concurrency. Whenever you are using this that resource, you should not identify how many other users is also accessing the same resource at the same time. That thing you have to hide if you are designing a distributed system. So again, concurrency transparency is types of another transparency. Next is failure transparency. That means hide the failure and recovery of the resource. Whenever you are using the distributed system, you have the multiple copies of the resources. If one computer fails, then other computers, the copy of that computer will automatically respond, give the response to your request. You should not able to identify whether failures is occurred and another system have generated the response for your request. This thing you have to hide. Persistent transparency, that means hide whether a resource is in memory or on the disk. Means that for the easy communication and for the faster response, we are storing some data locally in local cache memory. So whenever you are accessing some resource, you should hide that whether you are accessing from the cache memories or on the actual disk, because to access the data from the cache memory, is takes the less time compared to accessing the data from the hard disk. So this is called the persistency transparency. You have to hide from where you are actually accessing the data. So these all are the types of transparency, and transparency is the first issue to design a distributed system. Second is flexibility. Now flexibility means you have to design your distributed system such that it should be modifiable and it should be extendable. Now overall control of the system is basically depends on the kernel. If your kernel is flexible to modify, kernel is possible to modifiable and extendable, then and only then your distributed system can be extendable and modifiable. So overall dependency is on the kernel for the flexibility of the distributed system. In distributed system or in any operating system, the task of the kernels are process management, resource management, IO processing. This all are the tasks is done by the uh, kernel in any operating kernel in a system. Now based on this kernel, there are two types of kernels are available, and we have to identify which kernel is best suitable to design the distributed system. First is monolithic kernel approach is available, and second is microkernel approach is available. So first we have to know that what is monolithic kernel and what is microkernel, what is the difference between these two kernel, and which kernel is best suitable to design a distributed system. In monolithic kernel approach, your kernel is over the hardware. Actually kernel interact with the hardware to generate the user level output, application outputs. So there are two spaces are available in our computer. One is kernel space and another is user space. Kernel space and user space. In user space, in monolithic kernel, in user space, applications and libraries are available. In kernel's space, file systems, inter-process communication mechanism programming, IO, device management programming, fundamental process management mechanism are available in a kernel space. That means kernel is responsible to perform the file system, inter-process communication, IO management, and process management. These all the things are managed by the kernel. User cannot modify the processes, scheduling algorithms, and all the things, because it's everything is done by the kernel and it is available on the kernel space. So